Welcome back to the 29th of remaking Hotline Miami in GameMaker Studio, and today we're gonna have a few changes which are quality. For example, first of all, we will make the enemy turn around a little bit quicker and where he's actually going to. So basically a little update to that. Then a little update concerning the aggro. So for example, if you aggroed the enemy before, he was already aggroed now because there was just a line, but now we have kind of a cone. And if we are in this kind of cone of sight, then boom, we can trigger the AI, and as you can see now he's just up and going back. And for example, normally it would re-trigger, but now we disabled that. So if you want to know that, well, stick around. This is One Up Indie. I am a developer, so if you like what you're seeing, hey, why not consider sharing, liking and subscribing. So let's see, that was our old way. And if, for example, first of all, the enemy, for example, once he was going back, he re-aggroed. This is a thing which we want to change, and of course his turning around was always based concerning where the player is, so that is the thing which we're gonna remedy first. And here we find our culprit because our direction and the image angle was based where the player is. This is the thing which we're gonna cancel completely out, because our direction is now being designed and taken and assigned by the way where we are moving, and this is automatically done by our path system. So basically the direction is just set all the time for us, so we don't need to touch it. Therefore our image angle, which is being used to, for example, draw our dude and of course our weapon, then is set automatically, because that value is a little bit low, so 2% was a little bit low. Let's go for 1, and then this thing is getting faster than before. So this is our first step which we want to do, so this is pretty cool. But let's go into some other theory. So yeah, I already did a lot of that. So basically before that, the enemy was turning around just towards the player all the time, which we just remedied. Then the next thing which we want to do is, for example, once we are here and then, for example, our player goes away, then he's kind of turning around and going back. But let's say once the player was too near, then the AI was triggered, because the enemy is still having this variable ICU, which is then a minus value or 0 or whatever, and then this is all the time re-triggering the enemy instantly, which we don't want. So therefore we need to make sure that the re-triggering doesn't happen. So how can we do that? Kind of simple. We basically just say like, hey, in our basically this value needs to get cancelled out once, for example, we are heading there. So for example, we just say like, okay, nothing in there, and then we go into our state, which is then going back. Then we just re-trigger the ICU value of 6. And of course we can actually draw that thing on the line below the player. So let's go 50, let's go with 50, and then, for example, let's start it. As you can see here, still a value of 6, and then, for example, once he's turning around, following us, last position, nothing here, waiting a little bit, and then going back, and as you can see, the number is good. But of course it is getting re-triggered because our algorithm is working still a little bit clunky, but we need to remedy that also. And for that we need to have a few things adjusted. This is a little bit overkill, but still I guess it's a way to understand it most properly. So basically we have our enemy and he has 3 lines. So the first one, let's go for green. Let's go for green. This is the line where he's actually watching at, so this is the image angle, and then 2 other lines which can be kind of a cone of sight. And then, for example, you can define, okay, this is the area where the enemy can actually see you. And before that it was just a straight line all the time, just a perfect line, which didn't work too well, and therefore we're gonna remedy that. And for example, if the enemy is seeing the player like it's somewhere in between, then you select okay, cool, let's get in there. And then basically this is just calculated by a perfect line, which is just between the player and the enemy, and then we kind of have a deviation, let's say, of 15 degrees upwards and downwards from a perfect line, which is connecting well, those two instances. And this is basically the whole magic. First of all, we need to draw that stuff. Hopefully this shouldn't be too difficult, because it isn't. So we just draw a line, but not any line. We need to go and have 4 points. So for example, when we say like, hey, draw a line color, we need the x2 and the y2, and these things we always get with length dir. And for that I just copy paste some stuff. So basically one variable x and y, and here we go. And then we need to grab the current position of the enemy, then length dir, and with kind of I don't know how long you want to have that, so var, I don't know, let's go with a value of 100 pixels. And then, well, the image angle is the angle which we are using here for our drawing anyway. And then for example we can say width, let's go for 2, then color, see orange, yeah, let's go for orange, copy paste that in here. And then for example, once we check this out, we have something like this, and as you can see, a line is actually not where the player is, but basically where the enemy is going. So therefore it looks a little bit more organic, so this is cool. And then we just gonna draw 2 other lines to just see that in our debug mode. So basically this is just for us checking this out. Then we need the other x and x2 and xy positions where I just call it get line above. So this is above the middle line where we're actually watching, and one is below. And then we are just getting well, we need to grab and get those values also. Copy paste that not correctly, yeah, I did not. So basically 2 other points which we input as here and here, and then we just draw our lines as blue. So basically this is the same code, just copy paste it, but then we have angle difference, so var angle difference, and let's go by 15. Of course here you can deviate as much as you like, this is just for demonstrations. And then from our current image angle, minus and plus, and then boom, we got our nice 30 total degree cone of side. And this is basically the whole code, nothing else. And for now we can actually check this out, and as you can see now we're drawing that correctly, but still our AI is still kicking in because this is still the old system, but we want to be in kind of, well, our cone of sight all the time, and then therefore the enemy has to go there. So how can we do this? Well, we just go to our player, and normally we were checking for a collision line, and then for example there was no wall, cool, we have a winner, and then for example we can well, update this value or -1, so we can aggro the enemy. And now the aggroing needs to be a little bit more elaborate, and therefore we need to do a few things. First of all, we need our perfect line of sight, so basically the perfect line, so there needs to be kind of a connection between those two. So perfect line, and then we just call it perfect line of sight. And how can we get this? Well, kind of easy. We just go point direction, boom, and then what do? Well, we need to have a perfect direction from the enemy to the player. So basically we can just copy that code from above, but well, kind of different. So basically here from the enemy to the player, because this is once again being triggered in the alarm, because this is the AI triggering, and therefore we just say like, okay, you first of all need to get the perfect line, and then we need to get the deviation between our perfect line and our current line. And then for example, if the deviation is below 15, so 15 degrees top or left, then Sweet, this thing can work. Alrighty, so we just go and say like, hey, angle difference, and just call it the variable which is called angle difference, and then angle diff. Here we go. And then we need a source angle, which is the perfect one, which we just did. And then of course from our enemy, the image angle. So here, boom. And then for example, we got those two. And then we can just make like if the angle difference is smaller than or equal to 15, let's go by 15, then we can change the aggro of the enemy, and boom, everything stays the same. This is what we wanted. Here, a little thing, for example, the angle difference can be a negative value, and then this already makes no sense. So therefore we just say absolute, and encase that in here, and let's start it. Alrighty, so let's check this out. As you can see now, we are not triggering, so the ICU variable is not that. So basically it's not changing, but once we're entering the cone of sight, and he's going in, and then for example he's losing us, and let's go to 6, and as you can see now we cannot re-trigger it. Then we can kind of ambush him from the back, and then he's even though we're completely standing well behind him, the enemy cannot see us. And then once again we can re-trigger, and this is basically the whole thing, which is giving kind of authentic AI. And of course we can refine it going with other triggers. So for example, you can do the same schematics like here, let's say with a smaller ring, and then if you are really close, then re-trigger the aggro of the enemy anyway. So basically this is then up to you if you like that. Alrighty, that was it from my side. Hopefully that was of enjoyment, and see you in the next video tutorial. Have a good one. One up indie.